and recording. So welcome everybody to the Human Function podcast again for this episode. Today I am talking with Cristiano, and Cristiano runs a company called Nutrition Shift. And Cristiano is a good friend and a long-standing friend of mine, in the sense that, in fact, you were probably the person who planted the seed of change in my life at the very beginning. So, I mean, we're going back many years now, but in the sense of, you know, I remember you always talking to me when I was having a cigarette break and you were trying to empower me in a very subtle way.
Persuade
me to quit smoking and whatnot. So welcome, man. It's an honor to have you here, and especially with the journey that you've had into your role in nutrition. So we'll kick things off with a quick, just explain who you are, what you do, and once you've done that, tell us how you got into nutritional therapy and helping people.
Right. Yes. Hi. Good morning to you, Brendan. Again, it's an honor to be here with you. First and foremost, your audience should know that I am very honored to be part of your podcast series, because I do respect you and I honor your journey from where you were into what you are today. An example of change, transformation, commitment, and well-being and love to the self. So for that, you know, I appreciate your journey very, very much, and this time with you always. I think, yeah, those very first conversations were back in 2012, 2013, when I was still at university, and I was, you know, transiting from my old habits into my new ones. And it happened that, you know, you were at the same kind of stage, wanting to change few things, which you then embraced so well. And that was your journey is very impressive. So a little bit about me. I'm a nutritional therapist. I have a bachelor degree in nutritional science. I graduated at the University of Westminster in London using the functional medicine model. Functional medicine has got a highly scientific based approach, has got an individualized approach to every single person, because functional medicines understand the individuality of every single person. And by doing that, you are able to create, for instance, a very tailored protocol for each and every client. So I was very privileged to be able to use that method, which I, of course, use in my clinical practice. My clinical practice is in Bournemouth, where I happily live. I used to live in London, and I moved down to Bournemouth about 2 years ago. And I practice in a clinic on a daily basis. I run a website called nutritionshift.co.uk, which also has a blog page and also an e-commerce where you can find some of the best supplements within the UK market. I also work for a couple of supplements brands, and I'm the education and training manager. So I train health food stores, staff members about the use of these supplements. And I'm highly trained in digestive health, autoimmune conditions, skin health. I also have an NTC certificate, which allows me to work with cancer patients during and after treatment. So cancer is another area that I've highly specialized on. And I also tend to work with sport people and people with hormonal imbalances and people that wants to lose weight. So these ones are my expertise mainly, but I can certainly help people with any other condition. Yeah.
Cool, man. That is a lot of information in terms of what you do, and how much time. I think it's clear from how you described it, how much time you've spent learning these things. But I think the real question from my perspective is what's led you to this point. Like, in order for someone to dedicate themselves, because that's a life's work, right? You know,
it is indeed, yeah.
When I met you, you were a very well-renowned cocktail barman.
I still make some cocktails every now and then.
Yeah, and I mean, you had a very good reputation for having that ability, but you always struck me as a very passionate person in terms of your approach to things, whether it was the work you did then or the work you do now, which speaks for itself with all the qualifications and the work that you've done. But what's led you to this point? What's your journey into this? Because I think that could be quite interesting for people.
Yeah. Okay. So I think you mentioned a very key word here, which is passion. I believe that anything and everything you do it the best way possible. Otherwise, do not bother trying to do something else. And I've been lucky enough to engage and love whatever I've been doing. So when I used to work in cocktail bars, I love the vibes. I love the environment. I love the serving, and now I'm, you know, my role has changed completely from what I was to what I am, and the journey actually started from, you know, like many other healers and therapists, and, you know, people like yourself, for instance. I for instance hit the bottom. So because of my job role managing cocktail bars and restaurants and nightclubs, and I've done that for 17 years of my life, and that's a very very stressful environment. And back in the days when, you know, people were still smoking cigarettes, I used to breathe in constantly very, very polluted air. My diet wasn't great. I was under a great amount of stress, and because of my emotional well-being was not in the best place, I developed fibromyalgia and depression, and I'm talking about more than like nearly 15 years ago.
Wow.
And I went to my GP complaining about these issues, and the only thing I was given antidepressants, SSRIs, which work on serotonin reuptake. So they stopped serotonin to be reuptaken, so you've got more serotonin, and serotonin is the happy neurotransmitter. So I've been on those for nearly a year, having a very strong suicidal thoughts, and I also suffered with severe body pain, which was, you know, now they call it fibromyalgia. So my body was completely inflamed, as I said earlier, due to poor diet, you know, loads of stress. And I remember that one morning I was just lying in bed, and I couldn't get out from my bed, and I was staring at the ceiling, and I had this like incredible intuition, which was just one word, and that word was nutrition. So I had this massive inspiration coming out from nowhere, And that single event changed my life forever. I got up and I went straight onto my laptop and I was researching for the best institution that was offering the best nutritional course.
Mm.
And I've chosen the University of Westminster. And I was just delighted that, that I got one of the 33 places. I had to go through like loads of interviews and loads of self-reflective essays, and they received 300 applications, and I've got one of the 33 places available that year. And I think when I was talking to them, I really talked through my heart.
Mm.
And I was lucky enough to have some scientific background due to my secondary school. So because of that, it was a little bit easier. But I think my passion and my willingness to learn and get better myself in the first place, because I was done with being ill. I was done with feeling crap, if I can. So yeah, that was it. That was my turning point. Just one morning out of nowhere, this massive insight.
Mm.
And I've always believed in alternative medicine, because prior to that, like back in 2000, I was studying aromatherapy, Indian hand massage, Reiki, and I used to work in a clinic in Southeast London as an alternative massage therapist.
Okay.
But then, my life took me somewhere else. My daughter was born, and I was offered a very good job, a very good salary in managing a bar. So I left alternative medicine to go back at working in hospitality again. But then eventually I went back to alternative medicine one more time, and I believe now this will be my footprint, my blueprint, something that will stay with me forever. So this is my path in life, trying to make this world a better place.
Exactly. And I think, well, it's powerful to hear, because I think anyone who's been on a journey, particularly the people I'm speaking to on the podcasts and such, it's about finding the people out there who've had something happen to them that's relatable, that's understandable. And I'm going to ask you about fibromyalgia in just a second, but not everyone's going to draw that conclusion in this age and this time of, my body hurts, I'm in pain emotionally and physically, I need to turn to the things that I can control, because I think a lot of the time people are led by the extrinsic motivator, and I think we spoke about this a couple of days ago. So I have pain in my arm, similar to how you had pain, you were feeling unwell, you went to your doctor gave you tablets to help alleviate the symptoms. And so what jumped at you, maybe it was an epiphany, maybe it was a moment of clarity, or your body's way of having one last shot, a little bit like myself, there's that one moment where I had the same thing, actually, of lying in bed trying to fall asleep, and I couldn't fall asleep. And I was so tired of not being able to fall asleep that I figured, if I just try something else, instead of reaching for the phone to book a doctor's appointment or anything, what if I just tried to quit smoking? That was my first thing. Because if I can't breathe, it's because I can't breathe because I'm smoking. So if I can fall asleep and I'll sleep better, maybe my energy levels would change. That was how I thought about it, right? So for you, it's understanding that not everyone has that shift. And my question off the back of that is, firstly, for people at home who maybe don't know what fibromyalgia is, can you explain that? And secondly, there's two parts to this question. Why do we feel the need that we need to go and see a GP when something happens? And I know I'm guilty of it myself. You know, even last year, it was like, oh, something's wrong. I need to go see the doctor. So two-part question there. Far away, man.
Right. So yes, fibromyalgia, it's a very complex, let's call it a syndrome. It's not a disease. It's actually not even recognized. Fibromyalgia, one of the main landmarks of fibromyalgia is body pain. So the body, my experience of fibromyalgia was that some days I was in bed and just lifting a finger was sending really sharp, deep pain throughout my entire body. And one of the landmarks of fibromyalgia is inflammation. And this inflammation could be caused by many things. So your body is literally on fire. There are links to fibromyalgia, and actually people can read a little bit more about fibromyalgia, well, a lot more about fibromyalgia, if they go onto my website and they click on clinical nutrition. Within that page, you have different body system. You have digestive health, you have hormonal health, and I have one about inflammation. And one of the very first article I uploaded on my website was about fibro. And there are different other landmarks that can, that are linked to fibro. And one is thyroid health. Anything that is, so, an under-functioning thyroid could be a link to fibromyalgia. Also, stress is heavily linked to fibro, because stress impacts on your nervous system and the ability to use your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So healing always happens in a parasympathetic activation, which is when you are relaxed. But when you are stressed, you are constantly on a sympathetic nervous system activation, which has got like a cascade of negative effect, especially if stress becomes chronic. So people with fibro will have to, they will have to look into the thyroid function. They will have to look into the inflammatory markers. They will have to look into toxins overload, because some toxins, for instance, there are toxins that are water soluble and other toxins that are fat soluble, and the nervous system is highly fatty. So the neurons do have an outer membrane, which is a myelin sheet, which is a mix of fats and proteins. And these compounds, these molecules can be extremely altered and damaged during stress and inflammation. But if people will like to read more in details about fibro, I will definitely invite them to read this article from my website, which tells you the etiology of it, the causes, the possible causes, and what to do about it.
Cool. I've got it linked here, so I've just pulled it up on my screen. So
yeah, I guess that would be like the very best thing that people can do.
Yeah.
And the second question was?
It was about our need to turn to doctors immediately, and rather than kind of taking that sort of more spiritual and personal approach of, well, what am I doing to create this?
Yeah, so I guess that's kind of evolutionary. Doctors cover that role of knowing everything. Is the go-to person, and is still the go-to person. And for any conditions, for any disease, any symptoms that you have, it's always recommend to check in with your GP or with more of a specialist doctors if you have skin issues, or if you have, if you might need an oncologist if you have cancer, and so on. But orthodox medicine, it's what you have to check out first. But bear in mind that there is a huge alternative medicine world out there that might have the answer to your problems. Mm-hmm. So my GP didn't have an answer for my depression. My GP had a palliative drug, a medicine that was just working on the symptom of my depression, which was low mood. But the cause of that depression was not being addressed. And that's why I love the functional medicine model, because the functional medicine model goes and understands the root cause of the problem. And something else, when I share my story about my own issues, my own problems, I feel in a sense proud of that, because I'm hoping that my journey will stimulate and motivate other people in believing that their body can self-repair anytime, as far as they want it to. So the first step for healing, it's wanting to heal.
Yeah.
If the person doesn't have that willingness, the body will never heal. The body will never repair. And the human body has been designed to self-repair constantly. So think about, having a flu, having some temperature, or having some, digestive issues. The body will put you in a place that you have to rest and recover, eat well, sleep well, and after that, the body will be, feeling in an homeostatic balance again. We feel well again.
Yeah.
So that's a very important message. And for instance, I do not believe in chronic disease. I don't believe in chronic illness. When we are in a chronic state of disease, that's because first and foremost we have ignored so many symptoms, like headaches, or like bloatiness, or like constipation, or like a little bit of muscle aches. And these symptoms are just red flags that are telling your body that something that we are doing, thinking, or eating is not right.
Yeah.
There are no aliens yet to come on planet Earth making people ill. It's down to three things: what you do, what you eat, and also what you think. And with that concept, ideally you can reverse disease and symptoms.
Yeah.
So my job is to find the villains, what makes people ill, what makes people sick. And once I have an understanding of what that might be, I just remove it from their lifestyle, I just remove it from their thinking, or I just remove it from their diet.
Yeah. And
I put in the healing agent, and I see like miracles happening all the time, constantly. And that's like so fascinating. I'm deeply in love with human nature and the human being and the beauty of being human. And we live, our body is a miracle in motion. Our body is like has been designed to do great things. We just have to optimize our diet, our thinking, and our lifestyle to allow our body to thrive and do what the body is best doing, which is, thrive in life. Just be strong, be happy, having vitality, having good thinking, having being happy. Some of the hashtags that I always use are health, happiness, and longevity.
Yeah.
By being healthy is the best. Health is the best investment anyone can ever make.
Yeah.
In many ways, by being healthy, you will be happier. You can have better social relationships. You will be more professionally and personally successful. And you will live a longer life. That's 100%. So, for instance, obesity can shorten people's lifespan by 20 years. 20 years just because, we have extra adipose tissue. And that's mad. That's mad. And one day, sooner or later, we will all go. We will all become something else. We will die and we become something else. But I will be really pissed off if I die at 70 because of a detrimental illness, which has made my last few years miserable. And yeah, that's definitely not in my dictionary. I want to live a happy, long life. Okay. So that's what I do with my clients.
No, that's cool. And I think for a lot of people out there, this change is happening. I think there's still a lot of people out there who have no sense of understanding when it comes to I hate the term alternative medicine personally. I don't like orthodox versus alternative, and only because what we've deemed as the way or the standard practice is actually very arrogant of human nature in some respects, because although we're embracing the scientific evolution that we've had as a species, we neglect the many years that we've had to develop into this realm that we live in. I think what you said about inflammation and rest is huge, and I think it's often neglected. And what I see the most in the industry of health and fitness is that people will turn to movement before they turn to food as a cure for their ailments or their issues. Or let's take the average person who's feeling a bit unwell. They feel a bit tired. They've got that afternoon lag. They're sitting at their desk for a long period of time. They haven't moved functionally or sensibly for a while, and they're feeling a bit run down. If we take that person as an example, their immediate response would be, well, I need to go to the gym, or I need to go and find something that's going to give me that drive. So, for a percentage of those people, they will find that ignites something in them that spurs them on to look at their diet and this, that, and the other. But there's a lot of people that will then take that approach, and the government guidelines and the advice out there is eat less, train more. So you have this compounded effect of people reducing their calorie content. They start to lose body fat and muscle mass. Within the fat tissues, as you've mentioned there, we have toxins that exist, don't we? So, by releasing those things, without control, without sensible approach, they can actually do more harm than good in that process. So they've restricted their mindset, they've restricted their calories, they're moving more. And then at the end of a certain adrenaline peak of this is new, this is a change, this is positive for me, there's a plateau. And that plateau is where a lot of people drop off, right? So this is how I see it. So I guess in that sense, having a stressful life that's governed by a lack of everything to start to try and implement that sort of lifestyle, you're only compounding the issue of stress, and therefore, are you not just not alleviating? Aren't you just increasing the inflammation in your life? So, in that sense, you must be seeing digestive health, IBS, things like fibromyalgia coming up much more frequently now. Is that the case?
Yes, it's one of the most, for instance, one of the most researched health topic is IBS, digestive health, gut health. But I would just want to touch base on what you said about calories intake. When people are, wanting to cut down on calories, and they are transiting from their, lifestyle to which could be like more sedentary into more of a, an active lifestyle. There is an 80-20% of leverage that people can work on. For instance, when they want to lose weight, 80% is your diet, 20% is exercise. You might have a different idea on that, but my studies have led me to that conclusion. So as far as exercise is key and paramount for your well-being, diet comes a little bit before that, because you cannot exercise, you won't have enough energy, you won't have enough nutrients if you, for instance, your gut is inflamed. And if your gut is inflamed, you won't be able to absorb the nutrients you need to, for energy production, for brain function, for, just to make your heart muscle pumping at that level every day. That requires fine tuning nutrients. So you can't just be, going out there and strain yourself and exercise like mad if your diet is not, you don't have a good, solid baseline of good dieting. And something else, diet is not when you are restricting yourself from junk food. Diet, when I talk about diet, I talk about, your food intake. Saying diet is just another way of saying food intake or meals. And so I don't do dieting. That's something that dietitians do. I'm more of an educator, and I educate people on, what food will be good for them, what food they need to avoid, and so on. So yes, I do see a lot of gut health, like people with digestive issues. And I have, for instance, IBS is one of the main things I work with my clients. You need to know that, for instance, 1 in 5 people in the UK have a degree of IBS problem. That's 1 in 5. That's a lot of Brits. That's a lot of UK citizens. 1 in 5. So when I think of IBS, I think of IBS as an umbrella term to say that we have gut issues. When people go to their GP and they complain about, constipation or diarrhea or bloating or flatulence or any abdominal cramps, your GP or that GP might say, okay, you have IBS. So the person comes to me and say, oh, my GP has diagnosed me with IBS. But IBS is not a diagnosis. IBS is just an umbrella term saying that we have some problems, we have some gut issues. The real cause of the issue is still to be diagnosed. So IBS can be caused, for instance, gut issues can be caused by food allergies. So food allergy is a massive one that many people, for instance, are not aware of. IBS can be caused by overgrowth of candida, like candida overgrowth.
Yeah.
Candida is a yeast organism that lives on your body, outside, and especially inside your digestive system. And, a diet which is high in refined carbs, refined sugar will make candida grow.
Yeah.
IBS can be caused by intestinal parasites like worms, tapeworms, and others that live in your digestive system, which can cause inflammation and can cause all sorts of other problems. IBS can be caused by dysbiosis, which is an imbalance between your good, like your friendly gut bacteria, and the pathogenic ones. So you have more of the pathogenic compared to the good guys. IBS could be caused by SIBO, like a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So it's people will have to, once they've got gut issues, they need to find out the cause of the issue. And that's my role. So when people come and see me, before they come and see me, they will fill in a 7 pages questionnaire on their health goals, health and medical history, and a 3 days food and symptoms diary. On their very first appointments, I spend at least 1 hour talking to them, asking questions on the answers that they gave me on that questionnaire. Then I go home, I research in more details, and then I send them out an email which has got their protocol, their plan. So I take, great responsibility, first of all, because I'm dealing with somebody's health and somebody's happiness. And I take much honor for the privilege, to work with anyone. And I take things very seriously. Because I really want to, I've been in a very bad place, and I know how, how being depressed and how having fibromyalgia has impacted on my social, on my personal well-being and interacting with the world, my performance, my professional performance, and even like on a personal level, when you are in that pain and you are in a relationship, the person you're living with, your partner, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, will suffer as well. So that will impact on their own health too. So I do really take my time in putting this plan together, and I make sure that this plan is the best it can be. So one more thing about orthodox or alternatives. I kind of agree with you in not kind of differentiating between the two, but unfortunately there is a differentiation out there.
Yeah.
And what I will say to anyone that has got any condition, listen to what your GP has got to say. Go home, and then you might want to listen to a nutritional therapist. You might want to listen to a personal trainer. You might want to listen to somebody trained in acupuncture or somebody trained in homeopathy. And then listen to your intuitions, listen to your gut feelings, and your gut feeling will divert you towards what's best for you. Also, for what's acute, like any acute conditions, NHS is where I will go. So when people have a stroke, a heart attack, or like major injuries, like physical injuries, the NHS is fantastic with those acute conditions. But maybe I hope this won't come across too arrogant. But for what concerns chronic conditions, autoimmune disease, for instance, like Crohn's disease or rheumatoid arthritis or ulcerative colitis, the person suffering from these autoimmune conditions will be given immune suppressant. And immune suppressants, again, they go and tackle the symptom, which is an overreactive immune system. But why is the immune system overreacting? That's what the NHS doesn't kind of find out, unfortunately. But that's what I do. That's my role. I know what triggers an like an immune response or an overreaction of the immune system. I know what does that, and yeah, these are like the kind of main two differences between what I do and like my approach and the NHS approach. But they are, they, for whatever they are doing, we are blessed to have the NHS. We are blessed to have GPs. Because they are always the first contact.
Yeah.
But then there is this other world which I really invite people to experiment with, because it can really change your life for good, like it happened to me, like it happened to you, and to most of my clients. So yeah, that's I really want to reiterate and go strong about that.
And I completely agree with what you've just said in the terms of, it's always good to have an objective view of whatever it is you're dealing with. So, if you're in a situation where you're feeling unwell, you're not right, there's something wrong, yeah, by all means. I had it last year with my pelvis and the chronic pain that I developed with that, which is a long story that we won't go into now. But I think for me, the most frustrating part, and you can tell me what you think about this, but the most frustrating part is time that people have as their objection for a lot of things, but also the culture that we are in. We are in a situation right now, this very second, where we are locked down as a nation, as a world in a lot of places. And in my view, the number one thing that people could be doing, because let's face it, in the UK, we've locked down to protect the NHS, to alleviate the strain of sick people becoming sicker and going into the hospitals and taking up the beds, the limited beds that we have. And my frustration is that the number one reason that most of, you mentioned a statistic there, that's over 13 million people have a symptom of IBS. I just did the maths. 13 million people. That's standing alone outside of how many of extra people out of the 68 million, 70 million Brits in the UK, how many of those people are obese? How many of those people are overweight? And by being obese, you're shortening your lifespan, you said it, by 20 years. You're having all that toxic fatty tissue around your organs, around your body. And yet we're in a lockdown situation, and the businesses and the companies that are allowed to operate are fast food chains, are people's opportunity to go for essential items. I can go to the shop right now and buy an essential bar of chocolate, but I can't go and train with a trainer or come and see you face to face to have an empowering experience for my health, because that's deemed unsafe. So from my perspective, I find that highly frustrating, and I'm sure you probably do as well. Is it not reason or stand to reason that if we changed our approach as a nation, because it comes down to our choice, as a nation, if we changed our choices just by 2 or 3% over the course of a 3-month period, 1% a month, we would not see a change in the depletion of resources that the NHS have.
Brendan, you've touched on different topics there. I want just, I just want, no, it's good, it's good. I just want to say about time, okay? I don't want to depress anybody, but a while ago, I was watching television and I had one of the most powerful thoughts I've ever had in my life, which was frightening to me. And that was the idea of dying, okay? So I thought I had this like massive insight, which was super strong. And I picture myself dying, you know, I won't be there anymore. I'm gone. Okay. So life itself is the most precious gift we have. Your own life, be able to experience life in your body. The second most important gift we have is your time. And time is key. So people will have to prioritize their time for what they believe is best for them. For me, it's my own health, my own well-being, my own happiness, and my own longevity, and the longevity of my clients. And with that is the well-being of a society. Because if you expand that into a bigger picture, you see that healthy people, happy people, people that are more longevous, they will have a different impact on society. I just wanted to say that about time, because time is like, you know, it's so important. And when you talked about hospitalization and, the reason of this lockdown was not to overwhelm the NHS, that's kind of fair enough. But, you know, my take on this approach that most of the European government has taken on board, which is lockdown, social distancing, wearing masks, doesn't really work, and it's not working for many reasons. And on top of that, you also have, you have elderlies, for instance, that are dying because they don't have any social interactions. You have very depressed people because of all this fear and doubts and really bad thoughts that people can die because of a virus, which puts extra stress on the body. And the body, like stress, which is physical or emotional, is always stress, and stress lowers down your immune defenses. So when we listen to Matt Hancock or whoever else that goes on public television and really scare the crap out of people, those bad thoughts will stress you, will put you in a sympathetic nervous system activation, and chronic sympathetic nervous system activation lowers your immune defenses. So it is not the right approach. And also, for instance, mask wearing, the UK government came out, I think it was the beginning of April last year, saying that there were no evidence whatsoever that mask wearing was in any way possible or could have helped the reducing the spread of the virus. So they had no evidence because a professor, which I don't remember his name, a professor from Hong Kong, did do an audit for the World Health Organization about wearing a mask publicly, and this professor said, there are no evidence whatsoever that wearing masks is any good for the public. And wearing masks actually is detrimental for people, because wearing a mask will decrease your oxygen saturation, and increase CO2, which are called hypoxia and hypercapnia. So you are decreasing oxygen saturation in the body, increasing CO2, and these two have the ability to wake up dormant viruses in the body. So low oxygen saturation can wake up viruses that are dormant inside your body. And increased CO2 increases body acidity. And body acidity is a landmark of cancer disease. So cancer is a one of the landmarks of cancer is body acidity, alongside inflammation and others. So also wearing a mask, doesn't help, and it can actually impact in a very dangerous way on your own health. What else was there, buddy?
Well, yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. And in fact, when I saw in some instances in America, some states, depending on the government or the governance of that state, they're implementing this sort of mandatory mask wearing for exercise. And immediately when that came out as some kind of clickbait headline, I messaged my team. I have a WhatsApp group for all my clients, and I kind of help coach them that way. But just to create a community of people that something positive in their day, right? So, and I sent a message to them straight away, and I was like, guys, do not be wearing a mask when you exercise. Do not do it, because 99.9% of people I've ever worked with don't know how to breathe properly. A lot of people breathe with their chest and they don't breathe with their diaphragm. So the heightened stress levels that I see are controllable from a deep breathing mechanic. So how do we train someone? This is one of the things I try and work with people on, is how do I train you to think about your breath work for exercise, but more importantly, how can you use it to alleviate stress and so on? So from my perspective as a trainer and a coach for especially with movement, it is counterintuitive to wear a mask. So I completely get where you're going. The part that I touched on was the frustration that is born from my perspective of the symptomatic treatment. Let's put a mask on people because it might help. Let's give this person antidepressants because it's the only way we know how to deal with a big problem that is touching many people's lives. And we don't have, I'm a doctor, I've only got 10 minutes. So what can I do for you to make you feel better? Well, I can tell you what's wrong with you, and I can prescribe you some medication to take your symptoms away. But I just don't have the time to deal with the real issue going on. And that's how I see the reaction to COVID. I see the reaction as a very symptomatic, let's just put a vaccine on it and it'll all be better. And in fact, you hear it when, I've had many meetings with people recently over Zoom, and everyone always says the same thing. Well, let's hope when the vaccine comes out and everyone's had a vaccine, everything will return to normal. And you can hear in their voice, they don't believe what they're saying, because they don't know that everyone knows that the vaccines, they don't cure you. They're not designed to do that. You know what I mean? So I guess my question off the back of that was, how do you deal with that frustration of this sort of symptomatic treatment? And secondly, what would you say to people listening to change the way they think about things and how they seek advice?
Okay. How do I deal with that frustration? Well, I tend to help myself and stay positive all the time. So I do a lot of meditation. I walk in nature as much as possible. And I do, I for instance, just cooking things from scratch. I love it. I love making healthy, tasty meals. So I do what makes me feel good. And that's one way I have to navigate through these very challenging and frustrating times. I spend a lot of time researching. I spend a lot of time with my partner, but there is a frustration which I cannot, is always there, and that's the way, we are forced or asked, but mainly forced to do things. And I see, when you say that somebody is hoping and wishing for these vaccines to come as soon as possible, I hear that too. And that's what the mainstream media have been bombarding people with. So it's I don't want to get into any more of a conspiracy kind of thinking, because I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I see the data. I listen to both sides of the different opinion, both sides of the coin, and then I make my own judgments. I make my own idea, and I tend to connect dots. So for me, this coronavirus thing, it's a little bit of a scam, because I know that, for instance, Luc Montagnier, which did receive the Nobel Prize for biology. So you're talking like a major professor. Luc Montagnier is the professor that discovered HIV virus. And HIV virus, like the coronavirus, is an RNA virus. And Luc Montagnier, in his own lab, found out that this SARS-CoV-2, so SARS-CoV-2 is the name of the virus, COVID-19 is the name of the disease. What SARS-CoV-2 give you, the disease is called COVID-19. And he discovered that SARS-CoV-2 has been manipulated in a lab by combining the long RNA of the coronavirus with a shorter piece of the RNA of the HIV virus. He went public with this notion of his, or with this finding of his. So if this coronavirus SARS-CoV-2 has been designed and manipulated in labs, we know that somebody might have had an agenda, because what we were told is that this virus was spread from a fish market, from bats in a market in Wuhan, which is the very first lie that we were told. So after that, there has been a cascade of things which made me believe that there is something different going on, and one of the things that make me think that is the fact that we only listened to vaccine. Vaccines are the cure. When vaccines will come out, we will be safe. When vaccine will come out, the lockdown will disappear. Vaccines are 95% safe. They only talk about that. And when the narrative doesn't have any differentiation, I get suspicious. Okay? Because I know, for instance, that there are medical doctors in the US, for instance, and in Italy as well. And by the way, I'm Italian. There is a group, there is an alliance of doctors in Italy which have put together like a drugs protocol for COVID. So they send drugs which are already available on the market to people. So if somebody, for instance, gets symptoms of chest pain, colds, kind of flu kind of symptoms, they call them up, and they have a little bit of a questionnaire thing just to find out what could be the cause of their problems. And if they suspect that they have COVID, they send them via post a protocol. They send them medications that they can take in their own homes. So no need for hospitalizations, no need to stress the NHS or any hospitals. The cure is done inside these people's homes, and they had 100% cure. No one died, and every single people they treated, suspecting that they had COVID, they all recovered. And these medications are like readily available, and they are cortisone, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like aspirins, like normal anti-inflammatory, but not the paracetamol. And they use hydroxychloroquine. So these medications are readily available, but the main narrative is always the vaccine. And that's what makes me suspicious. I've also done other research and other training that, and there are like studies that have proven that, for instance, zinc and quercetin stops the coronavirus from replicating.
Okay.
Quercetin and zinc. There have been like finally some some exposure on the benefits of vitamin D on coronavirus patients. And these papers, scientific papers, said that 60% of the people that died of coronavirus could have been saved just by supplementing with vitamin D. And that's huge, but no one is taking that approach. The mainstream approach is just waiting for a vaccine. And by the way, this vaccine is, I'm not against vaccines. The philosophical idea of a vaccine kind of makes sense. What I'm against are untested vaccinations like this one now, because this one it's a brand new type of vaccination, which is not really a vaccination. It's a medical device, because the vaccine, the way a vaccine, like an ordinary vaccine, work is that they will inject in your body a very weak type of virus, so that your body can create an immune response and antibodies to that virus. But this vaccine, especially the Pfizer one, they're not really a vaccine. They're much more of a medical device. So this vaccine will inoculate into your body an RNA, a strand, a piece of the coronavirus, which will enter your body cells, and then your immune system will read that RNA. So RNA is the DNA of a virus. Okay, humans have DNA, which is a double helix of 2 RNA strands, but the virus only has 1 RNA. Okay, so they inject that RNA into your body, and what your body does will read it and will produce a protein which the virus itself has on the outside. It's like a spike protein that the virus uses to enter your cell, your body cells. So once this protein is being produced by your own DNA reading machinery, then your body will produce antibodies to that protein. And this is like completely like mad. It's a completely never tried before approach. The medical establishment doesn't have a clue on the effect on the long run of these vaccines. And, many people have had already very bad effect from the vaccine, and some people have been reported to die. There is like a very famous, unfortunately, a nurse, I think in the US, after being injected with a vaccine, I think she died after a day. She collapsed during the interview that she was giving to the media, and then soon after that she died. And the people that are reporting bad effect after the vaccination are not all of them, because we only first of all, we only get told what they want to tell us. The truth is always like to be found in between lines. And also people that are reporting an adverse effect after the vaccination are like not a lot of people. So, as far as, I like the idea of vaccination. I prefer something a little bit safer, which are these medication that I mentioned earlier, and, taking zinc, taking vitamin D, taking quercetin. B vitamins are also needed for strong immune system. You need vitamin C, high levels of vitamin C. Plant-based diets, lots of fruits and vegetables. Looking after your gut, looking after your digestive system means that you have a strong immune system. 70% of your entire defense mechanism resides in your gut. In your digestive system, you have something called gut-associated lymphoid tissue, which is where the 70% of your white blood cells reside. So if we have a good gut health, you will have a strong immune system. So, I won't take a vaccine myself. My girlfriend won't take it either. And also the people that might need a vaccine are the most vulnerable one.
Yeah.
COVID is only detrimental for elderly people, and and elderly people that have other conditions already in place, like cancer patients, people with diabetes, people that have cardiovascular disease. And by the way, the real pandemic is not about people dying of coronavirus. I've got so much respect, and my heart is broken about all these deaths for coronavirus. But the real pandemic are people dying for cardiovascular disease and cancer. In the UK alone, cardiovascular disease kills every year 230,000 people. Okay, I think COVID was around 72,000, and cardiovascular disease 230,000. Cancer kills, I think it's 187,000 people every single year, and globally, you're looking at 29 million people dying, combining cardiovascular disease and cancer. These ones are the real pandemic. Yeah. And that's the other thing that makes me think that there is a different agenda to what we are being broadcasted through mainstream media. Because if Matt Hancock says that the reason why we need to lock down is to save life, Matt Hancock should know that cardiovascular disease and cancer are caused by 5 main issues, which are lack of fruit and vegetables intake, alcohol, cigarette smoke, obesity, and lack of exercise. Okay? If the government is so much into saving people's lives, they should make everyone do exercise. They should ban cigarette smoke completely. They should reduce alcohol intake. They should make everybody lose weight and everybody eating their portions of fruit and vegetables every single day. And also, do you know which one is the longest lived country on this planet? I'll help you. It's Japan.
I was
The
just about to
Japanese,
say, yeah.
I'm sure, the Japanese government recommend 17 portions of fruit and vegetables per day. And Japanese people eat on average 13. Okay. In the UK, you still have the 5 a day, but the government says if you eat 8, it might be better.
Yeah.
So, you know, the Western governments are so far behind in you know, in making the right decision.
I love everything you've just said. And what I'd really love is if you could please send me a couple of links for people who are listening, in particular to the doctor you mentioned about the manipulated strain, or the manipulated virus, the Alliance of Doctors as well. I know you're going to write this down, so that's great. Just so that we can be transparent on this. You know, I hear everything you're saying, and something in me as a person growing up in a country like Zimbabwe, where there was a lot of corruption and there was a lot of the main newspaper was owned by the government. You know, it is no surprise to me that there are people scratching each other's backs in this process, and I'd be very interested to see how much money and investments and backhanders have gone on in the last couple of years or the last year in order for some of these things to have happened. And I think the victims of this are always going to be the ones who are the most vulnerable and the ones who know less or are not willing to invest the time, or maybe don't even know that this information is out there, because there are a lot of people who listen to the news daily and so on and so forth. And that's just how they've grown up. That's how they've lived. I was brought up to question things, as I'm sure you have developed that as well. And I like to question things, but those 5 points you touched on kind of brings me to that point that I brought up earlier, which was my frustration with the way that we've been sort of encouraged to stay home. We've been encouraged, you know, obviously it's been written into law as well, but I wish that the government would spend as much time marketing health as they do marketing fear. And to me, the fear factory is that of compliance, and it doesn't serve the government to have 68 million healthy people in the world, because they know that ultimately that impacts on the big tobacco companies, the pharmaceutical companies, the food companies, where big profits come from, and it obviously helps boost the economy. I mean, the mere fact that we had the Eat Help to Help Out introduced here just goes to show where this nation in the UK is in terms of the economy. You know, the economy obviously needed people to go and eat in its establishments to restart the economy. And to me, that's like, okay, well, if you give someone a choice and they don't know about educated choices, they're always going to choose something that makes them feel better. And if they're depressed and sad, they're going to be feeling like this lockdown has affected them. They're going to turn to the feel-good foods. You know, a cigarette used to make me feel good because it gave me a break from what I was doing.
Yeah.
Alcohol takes you away from thinking clearly, and will then, you know, there's nothing wrong with having a couple of drinks or something like that. But when it becomes habit, when it becomes the distraction, I saw it in the pub game. A lot of people who work all week long would go out on a Friday night to let their hair down, and it would take them away from their life ambitions, their life goals, their life purpose, because for the rest of the weekend they're recovering from the crazy night. You know, so these sorts of things, A, it boosts the economy, but B, it keeps people trapped in a way. And I that's my goal. My goal is to help people break that trap, break that cycle, as I'm sure it is yours. Would that be fair to say that that's a good summation of it?
Completely, Brendan. You touched on like a very key point here. You mentioned about Zimbabwe and having corrupted politicians. Unfortunately, science is not science anymore in a country where politicians are corrupted. So you cannot debate. When you say what is the science, you really need to be careful, and you really need to be able to read in between the lines, because unfortunately we live in a very unprecedented time where the truth has been completely twisted and bended. And when you have politicians which interest is not really the people's interest, you have a massive problem there. You also mentioned about investments and what the government invests into. I don't know if you know, but a person like Bill Gates found the World Health Organization for $4 billion. Okay, and this individual also sponsors and invests in the vaccine industry. So he sponsors the Gavi Foundation, GAVI, which is in charge of vaccinations throughout the world. So Bill Gates sponsors the referee and also the player. And that is a massive conflict of interest, which, makes me slightly suspicious. Also, just a touch on vaccination. People that will have any, health damages from vaccinations won't have, they won't be paid by the pharmaceutical industry, but they will be paid by the government, which is financed through taxpayers. And in the US alone, for vaccine damages, there is, I think, the expenditure is around $2 billion for compensation for damages after vaccination. You also mentioned about fear. Okay, I was listening to a podcast from Dr. Shiva. You might like it or you might not like it. You might know it or not. He's, what he says really does make sense to me. And he said that in business schools, they teach you a technique which is called, like a selling technique, which is called FUD, FUD, which stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yeah.
When people live in fear, uncertainty, and doubt, they are much more, easily controlled and manipulated. So you can you can make them buy into anything. And when you said about the economy has been trashed, has been completely destroyed. 42 million people lost their jobs in the US. In the UK, 850,000 Brits or people that live in the UK have lost their employment. Okay, which is not just about money. Being poor will dictate what you can buy, what food you can buy, the quality of your food, if you can enroll into a gym, if you can see a nutritional therapist, if you can see and work with a PT. So the other, roll-on effect of all this lockdown is also the fact that people have not been seeing their doctors. They didn't get any diagnosis for their conditions right now. They didn't get any cure which means that I'm supposing that death rates in the next few years will be much higher than the previous years, because people couldn't get hold of GPs or medications, so on and so forth. So it's pretty scary. But again, people, they really have to listen to as many different opinions as possible, just to find out, what they, because if you only listen to what the mainstream media says, that's only one voice, which reiterates constantly the same message: fear, lockdown, vaccines. But there are other thinkers out there that can really put a little bit of a different idea, a different notion into your brain, that can make you do something differently. And that's the only, that's the they say that education is the most powerful weapon, education and knowledge. But I also say the most powerful weapon that we have is your shopping basket. So when you go to your grocery shop, you can shop for ease or you can shop for disease. It's just a matter of choice. You will choose what to feed yourself with, and that's like a really powerful weapon. I've not been seeing any GPs, any doctors. My contributions to the NHS through my taxes are massive compared to what I get back, because I don't ask for any help. So the NHS spends zero money on my health. Because I've invested in my knowledge, I've invested in my health, and that's what, if you will read the emails we've been sending back and forth, my email signature starts with kind regards. Investing in your health is the best investment you will ever make.
And I was literally going to say, what would your message be to people listening out there? And you just,
I think that would be it. That would be it. And the other thing would be never believe that you have a genetic conditions and that will stay with you for the rest of your life. Because also genetic predisposition, for instance, doesn't mean that you are going to develop a disease. It's just a predisposition to something. And then you have your DNA, your genetic code, which only mutates over centuries. But what you can switch on and off are those molecules that read your genetic code. So those molecules can be turned on and off in a lifetime by the food you eat, the exercise you do, the quality of the food, so on and so forth. So the message there is that never, ever, ever give up on your health. Try different things and follow your gut instinct. Go follow those instincts, because they've helped me. My own instincts have helped me to come out from depression and fibromyalgia, and they guided me. And they say that you can only see stars at nighttime when it's dark, and that exactly what happened to me. So never, ever, ever give up on your health.
That's great, man. And in terms of things that I want to talk about with you, there's sort of quite a long list. So I'm mindful of time and everything as well. I really want to have you back on this, because I think on the podcast, because I think it'll be really powerful to hear your thoughts and your experience with other things in the industry and in the world. If there's someone out there listening who maybe thinks that now is the time for them to start helping people from health and fitness, what would you say to them?
You mean talking to therapists and professionals like yourself and myself?
Yeah, because those will be the people that hopefully will listen to this to understand the world a bit better as well.
Okay, yeah, that's a good thing. So I believe that networking is the key. Referral is the key. Sometimes we get too much focused on our own business, let's say. We are what we are. We know what we know, and we just do that. But there are other people out there that have different skill set. So working with, working with different professionals may accelerate your client's recovery 100 times. So if you are a PT, I recommend, I'm sure you guys, know about your food and so on, but be humble enough, and that's for me as well. Be humble enough to suggest that your clients might be benefiting from seeing a different person.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's what I do. For instance, when I have my preliminary free consultations with my clients, I spend maybe like half an hour. They call me up, and I find out if I am the right fit for them, if my skill set is right for them. Otherwise, if they come to me with something that I've never dealt with before, I might recommend them to see a different therapist that I know is more specialized on that matter. So I believe that networking and referrals are very, very important.
Cool. No, that's awesome.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, and I think that encompasses what I'm trying to do with this podcast is try and expose people to more information, expose people to people out there who are doing good things for the world, who are well respected, they understand what they're doing, they understand what they're talking about, and I think that to me speaks volumes. So I really appreciate your time today, and like you said, time is one of the most valuable things that we have. So I really appreciate it. I'd love to have you back because I want to talk to you about all the supplement stuff as well, and cancer and CBD oil, hormones. But I think what you've said today is a really powerful message for people out there. Even if they don't side with you on certain things, I think it's good information, it's good objective criticism of the world we live in and understanding. So I really appreciate it, man.
Very welcome.
Cool.
Yeah, like being and staying open-minded, listen to different people, stay open-minded, judgmental free as much as possible, because humans tend to judge other humans. Stay judgmental free, stay open-minded, and make this world a better place.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, man, and I'll see you on the next one. All right.
Perfect. Thank you so much.